Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So, you guys an update on a significant pattern change that is expected to bring lots of Arctic air into the northern United States, and this could set the stage for potentially a couple of snowstorms as we get into the next couple of weeks, deeper into November. I've got all the details going right up, right? So, they're going to be here on this Thursday evening. We have a lot to talk about in this video. We're going to be going over all of the latest information from the models, again, regarding our significant pattern flip that is expected to bring lots of cold air down into the lower 48 as we get into the next several days and eventually in the next week or two, again, with a very active storm track as well. So we're going to start out here, as always, by taking a look at your current radar, and not much has changed other than just that our cold front has officially worked its way through the northern United States. So you have two pieces of energy working their way across the northern United States as of right now. We have one in the Pacific Northwest, still producing some showers and thunderstorms. That low pressure system it is currently moving off to the east there, still talking about some, again, heavy rainfall across portions of Seattle, Washington, Oregon State in the Seattle area especially. And then that'll obviously continue to be move out of the region. Then we have another piece of energy work its way over the Great Lakes region, producing some showers and thunderstorm activity out here as well. Nothing close to being severe. Again, this is all just pretty much, for the most part, showery activity. But the rest of the country looks great. Other than that, everyone is dry, everyone is mostly cold, and that will likely be the case over the next couple of days, but things are going to get a little bit more dicey as we get into the next week or so. Again, that's when we're talking about that big pattern change that will really disrupt our weather across the United States. So we take a look here at your current alerts from the National Weather Service. Again, this map has cleared up quite a bit since the last time we looked at it. You can see we still do have some winter storm warnings for portions of northern Washington State out here. Again, in those pig shades, we're still talking about some very significant snow accumulation. We also do have some frost advisories going out for portions of southern New Jersey down through the mid-Atlantic coastline, Delmarva down into portions of coastal Virginia and eastern North Carolina. So very cold conditions that could potentially lead to some localized areas of frost out here. It's definitely going to be possible. So again, make sure that you are bundling up again if it does get to that point where it is very, very cold outside. And we do see some of that frost occur, but we also have some high wind warnings going out for portions of northern Montana, back into portions of southwestern South Dakota, and some high wind watches going up for southern Wyoming. So there are some very gusty winds out here, potentially damaging winds, so make sure that you are, again, staying safe out there, and that you are using extra caution when venturing outside onto those roadways. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we're going to be moving on here to the GFS model. We're going to be looking at the GFS and the European model for what our next couple of days could look like weather-wise across the United States. We look at the first couple frames of the GFS, and you can see our surface low currently working its way across the northern United States. It is expected to continue to kind of evolve here and grow as it begins to produce some more shower and thunderstorm activity. We could definitely have an instance of severe weather across portions of Dixie. Alley. We'll have to talk about that. We do have a slight risk in effect for portions of the Ohio Valley, so definitely something to, again, keep an eye on. Nothing too crazy on the table at this point, but it definitely looks like we could be talking about some relatively significant severe weather. Again, as we get into what seems to be Saturday and eventually into Sunday. And then our main piece of energy that everyone is looking at works its way down into the northern United States, with it bringing a huge blast of cold air as expected. But this brings some heavy snow over portions of the Great Lakes region as well as the lower Midwest. We do see an instance of snow here for places like Des Moines, Chicago, all the way down to potentially Milwaukee. And we do actually get some very heavy snow to band out here across portions of central Michigan, which could really end up totaling up to some significant snow accumulations there. Again, as we get into what looks to be late this weekend, again, that small surface low could be dropping quite a bit of snowfall. And we actually do see a low pressure system handoff develop. We get a secondary low as this moves into the eastern United States, and what happens after that is it actually continues to grow upscale, and that brings much more colder air into the picture. So with more precipitation developing and more cold air just getting kind of shoved down into the southern and eastern United States, that allows for all this snow all this precipitation to turn to snow. So anything behind that cold front, behind that 540 line, that will be falling as snow. So you actually get pretty widespread heavy snowfall across all of the interior Northeast. Lots of backside energy, bringing the chance for some lake effect snow as we get into, again, the early couple days of next week. And that system roars off to the north, again, bringing likely some very strong and potentially damaging winds across the New England coastline and the eastern seaboard. But that does bring some snow pretty far south, again, considering where we are right now, being that we are in early November. But that brings snow all the way down to, again, the Appalachian Mountain region, all the way down into the interior North Carolina and Tennessee mountain range. So again, there is a chance we could see some snow hitting areas very far south over the next couple of days. This is definitely a storm to watch, but it's looking like our first, significant storm of the season that could end up producing our first, actual snow accumulations for many of our folks out here in, interior Northeast. It seems like that is actually going to be coming again as we get into the early days of next week, where at this point we're getting below 100 hours out. So at this point, we can say this is a very reliable model run, and this quite literally could be very similar to what we actually do end up seeing. So again, it's all thanks to this huge blast of cold air that's going to bring the chance and the potential to see some significant snow accumulation. But what happens past that, we get that lingering energy to come shooting down from the north. Again, all this energy is going to be running the jet stream, and it's basically like a highway that brings it's like a conveyor belt, bringing all of these separate pieces of energy down right into the eastern United States. And that just allows for some leftover energy to end up producing lake effect snow. We actually see some pretty significant lake effect snow for several hours out here across, again, Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. That does end up impacting portions of interior Pennsylvania and upstate New York, and then you get another piece of energy to bring some snow showers and shower precipitation up to the north there. And at this point, we're getting around 200 hours out, so we're getting a little far out here on the GFS, but it does want another couple storm systems to move through. We get another surface low to bring some pretty widespread snowfall out here into the Northeast, considering, again, that we're in mid-November at this point. But you get a much more robust and stronger storm system that seems to be bringing down another pretty significant blast of cold air with it. You can see it's at 984 millibars, and it's working its way through the Ohio Valley in the lower Midwest, but it's producing lots of snowfall again, all the way up in here into portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Again, this would likely accumulate to a couple of inches at least. At this point, we're getting into Sunday the 16th, which is actually going to be a little bit more than a week out from today. And this low continues to deepen now into the 980 millibar range here. So again, very low pressure system developing here, very strong, but it's bringing down what looks to be like another significant Arctic blast. And you see that 540 line, that freezing line, all the way down to northern Mississippi and Alabama. But you get lots of mixing and frozen precipitation up here into the far interior Northeast, and you get a all-out winter storm for portions of the Great Lakes region, especially Michigan. Okay, so it really does look like this pattern is going to be favoring our folks out here in the Great Lakes region in the interior Northeast. Okay, so if I were to circle an area, again, these are the areas I would be watching for the chance to see some relatively significant snowfall accumulations over the next couple of weeks. And if I were to give you one state to hit the jackpot, it would likely be Michigan. Again, if we were to see another storm like this play out, we could have two significant snow accumulation kind of events happening here, if you will. But again, that low pressure system continues to deepen, gets very strong, also bringing some lingering energy and precipitation on the backside. With all that cold air nearby, allows for more lake effect snow. And then we also do get some very strong precipitation, or I should just say very heavy precipitation, all the way up and down the eastern seaboard, so a complete washout for our folks out here on the East Coast. You're getting likely a very strong damaging wind event with your southerlies, and just a classic, strong low pressure system that takes on an extreme negative tilt, again allowing for lots of cold air to come down, bringing some snow into the picture, and also again just bring lots of wind and rain for our folks inside the warm sector. And then at this point we're getting pretty far out, and the rest is pretty unreliable. So that is the latest GFS. That's the 12Z. We're going to be looking at now the European 12Z and seeing if it has any agreements or disagreements with what the GFS is showing. If we look at the European model, you can see that we do get that second low pressure system to come down, bring some snow into the picture across the Midwest. Now, this run of the European model is much less aggressive than the GFS, but it actually barely has a storm producing any precipitation. It actually fails to bring snow into the picture for our folks out here in Chicago. Now, it's likely cold enough, but we're just not seeing enough precipitation at all to get snow, and it's just a little bit of light rain and sprinkles, and that's the same for even our folks in Michigan. I mean, you do get a couple instances of quick, an hour or two of snowfall, but it's really rain for the most part. Until this gets into the Northeast, where the extreme northern part or kind of corridor of the Northeast, the interior Northeast, we do see it finally get some snowfall into the picture, and we actually do get some backside energy to bring down some snow also off of the Great Lakes region into the Chicago area, and eventually all the way back down to the Appalachian Mountain region, again with that low pressure system deepening and taking on that extreme negative tilt. But this would bring some likely very cold air down. Again, this is with the agreement of the GFS on that major Arctic blast we're watching. This would bring lots of cold air down into, again, the entire eastern United States all the way down to the Gulf Coast. That low pressure system takes on an extreme negative tilt with that comma shape there. And again, that's going to likely bring some extremely strong damaging winds up and down the East Coast and just lots of widespread precipitation. So this would likely be a nuisance for travelers out here, again, as we get into early next week. And then after that, we watch for our second single 4-hour next strong storm system. We actually do see that happen on the European model. We do get, once again, a very strong low pressure system to develop, and this brings lots of snow into the picture for our folks out here into the Dakotas, as well as even portions of western and central Nebraska. Just to the west of that low pressure center, we do see some very heavy snowfall occur. This is getting pretty far out, so don't want to get too specific, but we do see that surface low bring likely an instance of severe weather and some thunderstorm activity across the central plains, eventually into the Ohio Valley, until the low pressure system dissipates. All right. So that is the latest GFS and European 12Z operational models. Now we look at the GFS for our 2-meter temperature anomaly. So this is going to show us how much colder or warmer it is below or, again, above average in terms of temperatures. But if you look again, this is the latest signal on your Arctic blast. We're talking about potentially temperatures that could get down to as low as 20 degrees below average, all the way down into portions of Missouri, even into Texas. Look at this. This is the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, around 20 degrees below average. And that the same can be said for all of the eastern and central United States. I mean, look at this extensive Arctic blast work its way all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Again, this is a very widespread and very strong punch of cold air, and it gets very intense over portions of the eastern United States where you see closer to 30 degrees below average, again, which would bring some frigid temperatures out here for folks in the Ohio Valley. Again, it really looks like from Ohio all the way down to the Gulf Coast is where we could really see that big spot of extremely below average temperatures. So again, this is going to favor definitely a lot of these areas to see their first snow of the season, but with this much cold air coming in, we're going to be talking about, again, the potential to see some frost advisories, some freeze warnings, hard freeze warnings, and even some wind chill advisories, again, if we do see enough cold air to kind of move in, and this could really cause some problems there. So extreme cold air is moving into the eastern United States, again, as we get into this weekend and eventually into early next week, and that cold air continues to slide off to the east there before we flip back to another kind of warmer pattern. And after that, we could get a second Arctic blast that the GFS has been kind of showing here and supporting if this run could work. Again, there's that signal for the second one. Very far out to talk about that, but it really looks like, again, this pattern is going to be lots of kind of, flip-flopping with our temperature anomalies. Again, likely below average for the next couple of days in the east, but then quickly flip back to above average and potentially below average once again. It really all depends on, what our jet stream is going to be looking like, and we'll get to that in a second. But those are your latest temperature anomalies. And now we look at your wind chill index, or just kind of your wind chills out here across the northern United States. This is going to give us an idea of how cold the wind is making it feel. So this is how it feels outside, not what the actual temperature is. And you can see as our first big push of cold air works its way down into the northern United States, we already have wind chills into the single digits out here across all of the central plains. Again, this is a very large area and a large swath of real field temperatures into the teens and the single digits. Again, for our folks in the northern high plains, as well as portions of the upper Midwest, and that blast of cold air continues to work its way farther and farther south, and you can see that we do get temperatures around freezing all the way down into the Gulf Coast. I mean, look how, extensive this Arctic blast is. This is a huge blast of cold air. You get real field temperatures into the 20s across all of this area, and then even back up here into the upper Midwest, you're still talking about real field temperatures of potentially below 10 degrees, which is pretty hard to think, again, given the fact that we are still in early November. But even in the Northeast, again, as that cold air continues to shift off to the east and gets pushed out by the warm front, you can see we're still talking about a lot of these areas receiving wind chills of below 20 degrees, which would obviously bring on coldest air of the season since last winter. So very, very cold conditions are ahead. Very below average temperatures are likely, and we could see that reflected off of the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, which is going to be a little bit later than what our kind of, highest point in our our Arctic blast is going to be. You'll notice that we only have a small below average spot for the entire East Coast here, which just is because this is going out for the time frame in which the cold air will already be moving out of the United States. So if this were valid for a couple days earlier, this would be a much, more different map, but at this point it would be towards the end of the cold front, again, when the warm air is starting to take over. But you just can see it here on the Climate Prediction Center's forecast. Again, we're expecting below average temperatures in the east, and we're going to see a high pressure ridge dominate the west and the west central United States, again with two battling air masses that could really cause some trouble here over the next couple of days, potentially the next couple of weeks. Alright, so these are now your 500 millibar height anomalies, speaking of those clashing air masses. So this is going to give us an idea of what we're going to be talking about, our troughing and our low pressure, as well as where our ridging is going to be. And you can see where this cold blast comes down from Canada. Again, it's going to bring a significant dip in the jet stream. I mean, look at this trough again. Very significant ridge also building in the west. This is your jet stream all the way getting bumped up here into Canada, and then just that massive dip in the jet stream just absolutely plummets all of that cold air down into the Gulf Coast. So again, this is an extremely negatively tilted trough. You're not going to get severe weather from this just because there isn't enough precipitation with that low pressures, the surface low accompanied by this trough. But again, this is going to bring down lots of cold air with it, and you're likely going to get some very low pressure across the Ohio Valley with that storm system, that signal at least, and then that cold air continues to move off to the north. I will say also that our ridging does subside here as that cold front moves out, so we kind of return to a generally, zonal flow for a day or two, and then past that, again, the GFS wants our pattern to get disrupted again with the ridging actually going back up north, keeping an active storm track through the central and southern United States. So just a kind of flip-floppy pattern, if that makes sense. Again, kind of just going pattern to pattern to pattern, very different and unique, but at least for the next 5 to 7 days or so, it looks like we're going to be talking about, again, a ridge dominating the western United States while we see some troughing in the east, bring lots of cold air and below average temperatures. Alright, so we now look at your 300 millibar height winds, which is going to give us an idea of how amplified our jet stream is. This is what our jet stream is going to look like, or at least projected to look like. And you can see very clearly here where our dip in the jet stream is going to occur. Again, you can see that we already have a huge ridge spiking up here into the western United States. It's so big, in fact, that it actually goes all the way up into western Canada. And obviously that allows for our dip in the jet stream to get very extensive. And this is a very strong jet streak. Okay, you're talking about a jet streak of over 150 knots, and this gets very extreme. So you have an unbelievable ridge, again, relentlessly building up here into the western United States with high pressure, again, dominating this region. And that allows for our jet stream to absolutely dip into, again, areas as far south as the Gulf Coast. But Very, very strong jet streak here. Again, at the 300 millibar level, we're going to be talking about a jet streak of close to 175 knots, which is a pretty extreme stuff here. But this is a very strong trough. Again, huge dip in the jet stream. And then that moves off to the east, and you don't exactly return back to a zonal flow because you still have a very amplified jet streak, and you can still see that it's very wavy and kind of unsettled there. So this could bring down lots of polar air, and that's actually what we see here on the GFS. Now, it's not reliable because it's 250 hours out, but it gives us a good idea of what the signal is for the next couple of weeks. As, again, something like this could definitely play out where we get another extensive blast of cold air. So that is a very unsettled and active jet streak. Again, see 170 knots is pretty absurd, and that is a very fast jet streak. So just a very huge sign of cold air and very active stormy conditions. So for the last part of the update, I do want to look at the GFS ensemble for our total snowfall. Or excuse me, this would actually be our European ensemble for a total snowfall. Again, for the Midwest United States, we are talking about again, that signal for a potential snowy couple of weeks out here, and this is the latest signal for our Great Lakes region and the Midwest. Again, you can see our folks out here in two portions of Wisconsin and northern Illinois especially, we could be talking about a signal of potentially 2 to 4 inches of snow. Again, the closer you get to the Great Lakes is where we could have the most snowfall, but there's a pretty decent swath here of, again, 1 to 2 inches and maybe closer to 1 to 3 inches for folks out here into eastern Illinois, eastern Wisconsin, and back down here, especially into Indiana, where northern Indiana, we actually do get around the Chicago area. Again, this is right into Chicago. We have a signal for 4 to 6 inches of snow between now and the next, 144 hours, which would probably be the next week or so. So again, within now and the next week, we could be talking about quite a few inches of snowfall here to fall across all of the Great Lakes region. You can see, especially out here into Michigan, that signal we were talking about off the GFS and the European model, you can see it here on the ensembles. Again, the ensembles are showing a signal for up to 3 inches of snow for really all of Michigan, and so that goes the same for a portion of northern Ohio, all the way back down to Kentucky, West Virginia, and in the mountainous regions of Tennessee and North Carolina. Again, widespread signal for 1 to 2 and maybe as high as 1 to 3 inches of snow between now and the next 7 days. And for the last part of the update, we look at now the Northeast on this same run, and there's a very strong signal there as well. Look at the interior Northeast. We saw those robust storm systems on the GFS, and the European ensemble depicts that very well. Again, showing a signal for 6 to 8 inches up here in portions of interior Maine, northern New Hampshire, northern Vermont, and extreme northern New York State. And then you can see off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, we get a very strong lake effect snow signal of 2 to 4 inches. So very active times are ahead. It looks like the Northeast could definitely cash in on the first snow of the season. In fact, the European ensemble wants everyone to get at least a dusting of snow from Maine all the way down into Virginia. Again, it looks like we could be talking about the first flakes of the season for literally everyone in New England. So snowy times are ahead. When you get enough cold air and an active jet streak, again, good times are, waiting to occur, at least for your snow lovers out there. But that's kind of the video, so I appreciate all of you for watching. I apologize in advance if my, commentary has been kind of off. I'm very tired. I don't know why, but over the past couple of days, I've suddenly gotten very tired as soon as I start recording these videos, and I do actually do them just before I go to bed, so I just want to make sure you guys know that. Again, be sure to cut me some slack if you can. Again, I apologize in advance, though, if this video was kind of a little bit hard to understand or get through, but if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, consider donating to my PayPal. Link is in the description and in the comment section below, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.